We have Ifeanyi Okoye, an African affairs analyst, joins me on the news to take a look at the implications of this latest move from ECOWAS among other issues in the region. Hello, Ifeanyi. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good evening. Nice having you.
Now, Ifeanyi, the new leader of the Burkina Faso Coup, Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Damiba, gave a speech yesterday saying that constitutional order will return when the conditions are right. What kind of conditions is he talking about? What are your thoughts on this?
The main returning power after we are talking about the coup, the military being in the saddle of leadership. To me, I would not envisage that things will return so soon, because it's on note already that Burkina Faso as a nation has been experiencing some level of insurgencies and terrorism, which the previous leader or the president refused to address. And it's disheartening. At this modern time, no nation should be governed by the barrel of a gun, let alone the military expressing interest in taking over a nation. The best bet we should preach is dialogue and using political will on some issues, because there is more to the issue. I would like to make some comparison with what is happening in the northeast in Nigeria, my country. It's as if they experience the same issue, because you don't tell the people that okay, after some time the government could the leadership of the nation could intervene as a result of incessant killings. They lose their livelihood, like their livestock, agricultural products, and the people felt that, well, and we have seen some of the interviews granted by the locals or the indigenous of Burkina Faso. They said clearly that they are not comfortable with the sanctions or the suspension placed by ECOWAS, that ECOWAS never came to their aid when they were dying. And it's so unfortunate. The leadership never acted timeously to address the pressing need of the people. Knowing fully well that Burkina Faso is a nation of just 20 million population with a very small land size, and their source of livelihood is agriculture and livestock and value and supply chain. So it's painful that such things is coming at this time. I just hope that the ECOWAS on their own part will find a political solution to the issue by sitting on roundtable discussion and negotiation with parties involved and restoring the democratic elected government to the people, with the people.
Okay. Thank you, Ifeanyi. So, Ifeanyi, my next question is this. Why are there so many military coups, especially in the West African sub-region? What is driving these coups, and is there a contagion effect?
Well, the issue of coup has been age-long something. If you look at the West African region as a whole, the 15-member nations, almost all of them cannot claim they were never an exemption of previous coup, ranging from Ghana, from Mali, from Kenya, a whole lot of them. But what we want now is leadership, because some of the challenge that brings about this modern coup, or I'll call it modern coup in 21st century, is lack of leadership, short-sighted leadership, lack of visionary leaders, people who are not in tune with the challenges of the struggle of the people who voted for you. Most of the leaders, African leaders, especially West African leaders, are far from reality. The region is not developing at the pace it ought to develop, because as a result of lack of infrastructure, poor healthcare system, their society or the economy is being ravaged by what we call, or what we now know as insurgency and terrorism, which most of them are failed to put an end to by looking for ways to nip the boat. And it's so unfortunate that at this modern time that we are still experiencing coup. We ought to have gone beyond this, because in West Africa we have a very mass camp of unemployed young people, because most of the populations are young people who are productive, yet nothing to account for. We want a situation whereby the leaders can come together and tell themselves the truth and put an end to bad governance, because bad governance is the bane in West Africa.
Okay.
Sometimes some of these leaders, they claim to be democratic, but they are not democratic in action, in nature, into the plight of the people. A lot is going on, and we can't continue like this as a nation, or as a continent, or as West Africa. As time goes on, there will be a revolution in the whole of West Africa.
Okay,
Ifeanyi, we are still surviving. Hello.
Yes, so ECOWAS is frowning hard at this coup. We saw sanctions come down heavy on Mali in the last few weeks, and Guinea earlier when the coup was planned there. Do these sanctions really work as a deterrent to stop the military from taking over power when they see the opportunity to do so?
We all know that some of the agitations of the military coming to power has always been the issue of bad governance, incompetency of the government of the day, the democratic elected government, by not living up to the aspirations and yearning of the people. It has been a challenge that for one successive democratic government has always come with its own style, that sometimes the military are always not comfortable. And military, like I would say, military taking over is not the best bet, because the constitutions in most aspects is being suspended. The right to freedom, people's rights have been trampled upon. Democracy still remains the best bet. But the truth of the whole matter is that the West African leaders, especially those who make up the ECOWAS body, they should ask themselves some questions. They should purge themselves of dictatorial tendency. They claim to be democratic, but they are not democratic in nature. They only just because of modern day democracy, it has to be accepted, and they do everything possible to win the election, forgetting the people. Most of these nations are ravaged by poverty. The GDP are so poor. The people are complaining. Imagine a nation of Burkina Faso with very small population. Compare Burkina Faso with the population of Lagos, Nigeria. Lagos, Nigeria is bigger than Burkina Faso, but why we they have Coup? Because their population, they could manage it and become productivity if they have proper leadership. But the problem is lack of foresight and short-sighted visionless leader propelling all these crises within the West African nation.
Finally, Ifeanyi, earlier when I did take that story on Burkina Faso, the opposition leader did say, sanctions are only going to hurt ordinary Burkinabes. ECOWAS finds itself in between a rock and a hard place, because Burkina Faso is landlocked and they are bordered by 4 coastal nations. And if they sanction them the way they sanctioned Mali by imposing movement and economic sanctions on the country, it will have serious repercussions. So what can be done in the case of Burkina Faso, if you could advise ECOWAS?
I still believe that beyond placing sanctions on ECOWAS, most of these military leaders, they don't consider the long-term effect of the damage of holding on to power. It is best bet they should have a round table. There should be negotiation. There should be shifting of grants, and not just sanctioning. The 15-member nation, which some of the leaders place sanctions on Burkina Faso, what are they doing to make sure that not just return the government to a democratic process, but making sure that some of those issues that the average Burkina Faso complain of, that in the long term they are those at the receiving point. How are they making sure that the governors are, even though it's a sovereign nation, to make sure that things are in place? Because we have a long way to go on some of these issues. We cannot be dwelling on sentiment. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ifeanyi. This is a fine point to live in. We do appreciate your contribution, Ifeanyi Okoye. Thanks for talking to us at NC Continental Prime.
Yeah, thank you very much.